Welcome back to English Podcast 2.0. Today we're diving into two things that might seem totally different at first. Those pesky pests we find in our homes and the heartwarming traditions of Thanksgiving.
It's really interesting though, right? They both make us feel things, like really strongly. Pests, we kind of love them and hate them. They're super cool creatures, but we don't want them in our houses. And then Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving brings up all sorts of feelings, like nostalgia, family, being together. And then, let's be honest, sometimes a little bit of stress. Right?
Totally. Let's start with those unwanted house guests, the pests. I bet everybody's got at least one creepy pest story.
Oh, I'm sure we do. So many stories. It's crazy how these little tiny things can have such a huge impact on us. Like, think about bed bugs. They can live for months without food, and they hide in these little cracks. And the bites. So uncomfortable, they can even make you anxious.
Ugh, bed bugs. When I was teaching, we had bed bugs in the classroom. A total nightmare. Just thinking about them crawling around, especially at night, makes my skin crawl. And they're so hard to get rid of.
They are. You have to do a bunch of things to get rid of them, like really clean everything, heat treatments, even call pest control. It's tough.
And if you think bed bugs are creepy, what about rodents? Like rats. I was under a bridge once and I was totally convinced this huge rat was about to attack me.
Yeah, when you don't know what it is, things seem scarier. It was just some harmless thing living in the water, but for a second, I bet you thought of the worst.
I did. It turned out to be nothing, but yeah, I definitely don't go under bridges alone at night anymore. But speaking of rats and mice, it's funny how we call them vermin or rodents.
Right, those words make them sound gross and like they spread disease. But rats and mice are actually pretty smart. They've adapted so they can live with us in cities. They find food and shelter wherever they can.
It is kind of impressive. They're survivors. But we definitely don't want them in our homes. That's when the classic mouse traps and rat traps come in handy.
For sure. Those traps use the fact that mice and rats are curious and like to look for food. They might seem a little mean, but they work to keep them out and protect our food.
Okay, let's move on from creepy crawlies and rodents. Let's talk about buzzing things. Wasps, hornets, bees. I have to admit, I'm kind of scared of those.
Yeah, those stings hurt. But they're really important to the environment, you know? Bees pollinate a ton of the fruits and vegetables we eat.
Oh, yeah, we need them for sure. But when you have a hornet's nest right outside your door, it's hard to think about that. I saw this huge hornet's nest once hanging from a branch. It was like something out of a movie.
Those nests are incredible, though. The way they work together and use their saliva and wood to make them is fascinating.
Impressive, yes, but I'm admiring them from far away. Speaking of staying far away, what happens when pests get out of control? That's when they need to call the professionals, right?
Exactly. Exterminators know what they're doing. They can figure out what kind of pest you have and the safest way to get rid of it. They use pesticides carefully, so it's safe for people and the environment.
So they're like pest superheroes. They come and save us when we're overwhelmed.
Yeah, they help us when things feel out of control.
Okay, so we've talked about all these pests. It can be kind of unsettling, but also pretty interesting. Now, let's switch gears to something total different. Thanksgiving.
It's a nice change, isn't it? Going from stuff we don't want in our houses to this holiday about being together, being grateful, and of course, the food.
It really is like switching from a scary movie to a nice, feel-good family movie. And I think at the heart of Thanksgiving is gratitude, right? Taking a moment to appreciate everything we have.
Yeah, definitely. Thanksgiving gives us this time to just stop and think about all the good things we have. Our families, friends, our health, even the little things that make us happy. Those are all things to be thankful for.
I love that Thanksgiving is this time set aside to be grateful, like a reminder built into our calendars to stop and appreciate everything.
It's powerful, and it can affect the whole year, not just Thanksgiving. Being grateful helps us focus on what we have instead of what we don't have, which can make us happier and more content.
And Thanksgiving is always on the fourth Thursday in November, right? It kicks off the holidays when we go from fall to winter.
Right. It's a time when everyone, no matter who they are, can come together and share a meal and make memories.
I love that. It's about gathering and traditions. We hosted Thanksgiving at our house last year. It was crazy busy, but in a good way. My wife was decorating, I was cleaning. Everyone was coming in with all the food they made.
Sounds like a wonderful gathering, full of family and good times.
It was. And speaking of traditions, it's cool how families make their own customs, on top of the big Thanksgiving traditions. Like my wife is from the South, so we always have some special Southern dishes.
That's a really nice example of how cultures mix and make traditions even better. It shows how Thanksgiving is a national holiday, but it's also personal for every family.
One of our traditions, of course, is the classic turkey. My brother-in-law used to deep fry the turkey. It was always a sight to see.
Ah, fried turkey. A real Thanksgiving showstopper. It shows how creative people get when it comes to holiday food.
It was definitely memorable. And while eating turkey is a big Thanksgiving custom for a lot of people, watching the Macy's Day Parade is another one that a lot of families do, including mine.
The Macy's Day Parade with all the huge balloons and the excitement is a classic Thanksgiving thing for millions of Americans. It's amazing how something on TV can bring so many people together.
It's like a huge party to kick off the holidays. But let's be real, the food is the best part. The Thanksgiving feast is all about delicious food, with something for everyone.
It's like every dish works together perfectly.
You got the main attraction, the turkey, and then all the side dishes.
And the side dishes are where families show their own style and what's special about where they're from. From mashed potatoes and stuffing to sweet potato casserole and cranberry sauce, every dish has its own story.
And sometimes those stories lead to some fun debates. Stuffing cooked in the turkey or dressing baked on its own, canned cranberry sauce or homemade. What do you think?
Ah, those are the big Thanksgiving questions. It's funny, those little arguments and what people like are what make Thanksgiving special. It's all about those shared traditions and what each person likes.
I totally agree. For me, one of the coolest things about Thanksgiving dinner is how certain tastes and smells can bring back really strong memories. Roasting turkey, sweet pumpkin pie, buttery mashed potatoes. All those smells and tastes take me back to Thanksgivings when I was younger and all the good feelings of those times.
You're right, those smells and tastes are so connected to memories of family, laughing, and feeling happy and content. It's like our senses go straight to our emotions, especially when it comes to food.
It's not even just about the food itself, it's about everything. A beautiful table, everyone talking and laughing, being around people you love, it all makes Thanksgiving magical.
It's a full sensory experience. Everything works together to make memories that last.
Speaking of all those senses, we should talk about what some of the Thanksgiving foods mean, like what they symbolize.
Oh, that's interesting. What are some connections we might not even know about? For example, the turkey. It's been in North America for a long time. Native Americans would hunt turkeys, and they were important to them.
So the turkey wasn't just a random choice for Thanksgiving. It's been important to people on this continent for a long time.
You got it. And then there's cranberry sauce. Cranberries are from North America, and Native Americans used them for food and medicine.
It's crazy to think about that connection, what we eat today and what people did hundreds of years ago.
And corn. Corn is huge on Thanksgiving, and it has a really important history for Native Americans. It was sacred to them, and it reminds us of how much Native Americans contributed to American food and culture.
So the Thanksgiving meal isn't just a bunch of tasty food. It's about history, cultures coming together, and traditions mixing over time.
Exactly. It's a whole story, much bigger than the food itself.
Okay, as we keep going with this Thanksgiving deep dive, I want to talk about the language we use for it. We talked about gobble and how it has two meanings, but what are some other Thanksgiving words and phrases?
Oh, good question. One that comes to mind is stuffed to the gills. It's like a fun way of saying, we ate so much we can't move.
Haha, I know that feeling. And it's funny how stuffed to the gills makes me think of the fish we talked about earlier.
It just shows how language is playful. We use words from different things to make fun and interesting expressions.
And there's the wishbone. That's the bone in the turkey's breast, shaped like a fork. Two people pull on it, and whoever gets the bigger piece gets to make a wish.
It's fun and maybe a little superstitious. It's interesting to think that this tradition might go back to the ancient Romans.
So even our Thanksgiving traditions might be older than we think and connected to people from all over the world.
Exactly. Another phrase is doggy bag. That's the bag we use to take home all the leftover food.
I bet those doggy bags will be full after Thanksgiving. Speaking of leftovers, I'm not a huge fan of eating the same thing for days, but some people love Thanksgiving leftovers and use them to make all sorts of new dishes.
It's cool how we all like different things, even with traditions. Some people love to experiment with leftovers, and others like trying new things.
I'm definitely the try new things kind of person.
Mm.
But I admire people who can turn Thanksgiving leftovers into something completely different.
And those leftovers kind of keep the celebration going after the main day. It's nice knowing that the good food and memories can last a little longer.
Okay, so we talked about the history of Thanksgiving, what some of the food represents, and even some funny Thanksgiving words. But I think there's something else we need to talk about. The real meaning of Thanksgiving.
You're right. It's more than just the food, the parades, and the football games. It's about gratitude.
Gratitude, it's not just a feeling, it's a way of looking at the world. And Thanksgiving is a time to really focus on that.
It's a time to stop and appreciate what we have, even the little things, and to appreciate the good things, even when things are difficult.
It's about thinking about everything we're thankful for. Family, friends, our health, our homes, even the simple, happy things we forget about when we're busy.
It reminds us that we can be grateful every day, not just on Thanksgiving. By focusing on the good stuff, we can feel happier, more connected, and like our lives have more meaning.
Gratitude, it's like the best way to fight negativity and make things better.
Yeah.
And what better time to think about that than Thanksgiving?
And on that note, let's wrap up part 2 of our Thanksgiving deep dive. We'll be back with part 3, where we'll keep talking about gratitude, what makes it so great, and how we can make it part of every single day. Welcome back to English Podcast 2.0. We're going to keep exploring Thanksgiving, going deeper into its history and how this holiday has changed over time.
So when we think about Thanksgiving, the first thing that pops into my head is that story of the Pilgrims having their first Thanksgiving meal back in 1620.
Yeah, that story of the Pilgrims, the English settlers who landed in Plymouth, Massachusetts, sharing a harvest meal with the Wampanoag Native Americans, that's become like the main story of Thanksgiving.
It's a story about making it through tough times, working together, and being thankful for the good food they had. But I've also heard there's more to it, that Thanksgiving history is more complicated than that one story.
You're right. We need to remember that Thanksgiving history has different sides. It's not just about the Pilgrims.
So what are those other sides? What else should we know about how Thanksgiving started?
Well, first, the Pilgrims and the Wampanoag, they were more connected than just sharing one meal. The Wampanoag had lived there for a long time, centuries before the Pilgrims, and they already had their own celebrations to give thanks for the harvest.
So the idea of a harvest celebration wasn't new for the Wampanoag. They had their own ways of showing gratitude for nature.
Exactly. And the Wampanoag, they helped the Pilgrims survive that first winter, a really hard winter. They taught them how to grow food and about the plants and animals that lived there.
It sounds like they shared knowledge and learned from each other, trying to live in a new place.
Right. And it's important to remember, when Europeans came, it changed things a lot for the Native Americans. They lost their homes, got sick, and there were fights. So even though the first Thanksgiving might have been about cooperation, we need to remember that it happened during a time when Europeans were taking land from Native Americans, and that had a big impact.
That makes sense. It's about understanding the whole picture, the hard parts and the good parts.
And as the United States became a country, the way we celebrate Thanksgiving changed too. It wasn't a national holiday until the middle of the 1800s during the Civil War. President Abraham Lincoln made it a national holiday.
So Thanksgiving
Yeah.
brought the country together when they were divided.
Yeah. And over time, Thanksgiving kept changing based on what was happening in society and culture. It's become a time for families to be together no matter where they come from, share a meal, be thankful, and make memories.
It's amazing how a tradition from hundreds of years ago still means something to people today. It's both old and new at the same time.
It shows that people want to connect, have traditions, and take a break from their busy lives to think about things. And those traditions, like we said before, can be different for every family.
Totally. Like our family having Southern food at Thanksgiving. What about you? Do you have any special Thanksgiving traditions?
We do. One of our traditions is to go around the table and say what we're thankful for. It's simple, but it always makes us feel closer.
That's really nice. It brings everyone together. It makes you feel that thankful feeling. That's what Thanksgiving is all about. And speaking of Thanksgiving traditions, we can't forget the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade.
Oh, yeah, the Macy's Day Parade. Huge balloons, marching bands, crazy floats. It's like Thanksgiving wouldn't be the same without it.
When I was a kid, I loved watching those giant balloons. It was like magic.
It's something that families all over the country watch together. It's crazy how TV can make people feel so happy and excited all at the same time.
It's like this huge party that gets the holidays started. But really, Thanksgiving isn't Thanksgiving without the food. We talked about some of our favorite dishes, but I think we should talk more about all that delicious Thanksgiving food.
Definitely. Thanksgiving dinner is like a celebration of how much good food there is, with tastes and textures that make you feel good.
It's like an orchestra, with each dish playing its part perfectly. You've got the star, the roast turkey, and then all the side dishes to make it even better.
And those side dishes, that's where families show their traditions and where they're from the classics like mashed potatoes and stuffing to sweet potato casserole and cranberry sauce. Every dish has its own story.
And those stories can turn into funny arguments sometimes. Stuffing cooked in the turkey or dressing baked separately, canned cranberry sauce or homemade. Which one are you?
Ah, those are the Thanksgiving debates we love. And I think it's those little things, what people like and don't like, that make Thanksgiving so special. It's about traditions and what each person enjoys.
One of my favorite things about Thanksgiving dinner is how certain tastes and smells take me back to past Thanksgivings. The smell of turkey roasting, sweet pumpkin pie, buttery mashed potatoes, it's like I'm right back there with all those happy memories.
I know exactly what you mean. Smells and tastes are so powerful, they can bring back memories of being with family, laughing, and feeling all warm and fuzzy. It's like our senses go straight to our hearts, especially with food.
It's more than just the dishes themselves, it's everything together. A beautiful table, people talking and laughing, being around loved ones, it all adds up to that Thanksgiving magic.
It's like a full experience for your senses. Everything comes together to make memories that last. We should talk about some of the Thanksgiving foods and what they represent, their meaning.
Oh, that's interesting. What are some connections we might not know about?
Well, for example, the turkey itself. It's been in North America for a long time. Native Americans hunted turkeys, and they were very important to them.
So the turkey wasn't just some random bird they picked for Thanksgiving. It's been important here for a long time.
Exactly. And then you have cranberry sauce. Cranberries are native to North America, and Native Americans use them for food and medicine.
Wow, it's amazing to think about those connections. What we eat today and what people did so long ago.
And corn. Corn is a big part of Thanksgiving, and it has a long history in Native American culture. It was sacred to them, and it reminds us how much they contributed to American food and culture.
It sounds like Thanksgiving dinner isn't just about delicious food, it's also about history, different cultures coming together, and how traditions have mixed over time.
You got it. There's a whole story there, way beyond just the food itself.
Okay, as we keep going on this Thanksgiving journey, I'm interested in the words we use for it. We talked about gobble and its two meanings, but are there other interesting words or phrases we use for Thanksgiving?
That's a great question. One that comes to mind is stuffed to the gills. It's a funny way of saying, you ate so much you can hardly move.
Oh, I've definitely been there.
Yep.
And it's funny, stuffed to the gills reminds me of the fish we were talking about before.
That's just how language works. It's playful. We use words from all sorts of things to make expressions more fun and interesting.
And then there's wishbone, that forked bone in the turkey's breast. Two people pull on it, and whoever gets the bigger piece gets to make a wish.
It's a fun tradition and a little bit superstitious too. Some people think it comes from ancient Rome.
So even our Thanksgiving traditions could be older than we think and connected to people all over the world.
Exactly. And another phrase we use is doggy bag for taking home leftovers.
I bet a lot of doggy bags will be full after Thanksgiving. And speaking of leftovers, I'm not really into eating the same thing for days after. But I know some people love Thanksgiving leftovers and make new dishes with them.
It's interesting how our tastes are all different, even with traditions. Some people love experimenting with leftovers, others like trying new things.
I'm definitely the try new things type, but I admire people who can turn leftovers into completely new dishes.
And the leftovers keep the celebration going after the main day. It's nice to know that the good food and the good feelings can last a little longer.
Okay, so we've talked about Thanksgiving history, what some of the foods represent, and even some funny Thanksgiving words. But I think there's one more thing we need to talk about. The real meaning of Thanksgiving.
You're right. It's not just about the food, the parades, the football. It's about gratitude.
Gratitude. It's more than just a feeling, it's a way of looking at the world. And Thanksgiving is a special time to focus on that.
It's a time to just be still and appreciate what we have, the big things and the little things, and to see the good things, even when times are tough.
It's about being thankful for our families, friends, our health, our homes, even those little everyday things that make us happy that we sometimes forget about.
It reminds us that we can be grateful every day, not just on Thanksgiving. And when we focus on the good things, we feel happier, more connected, and our lives feel more meaningful.
Gratitude. It's the best way to fight negativity and make things better. And Thanksgiving is the perfect time to remember that, don't you think?
Definitely. And on that note, let's finish up part 2 of our deep dive into Thanksgiving. We'll be back with part 3 to talk more about gratitude, why it's so good for us, and how we can make it part of every single day.
Welcome back to English Podcast 2.0. So in this last part of our deep dive, I want to go back to what we were talking about, gratitude.
It's a good place to end, don't you think? It's really the core of Thanksgiving, what it's all about.
For sure. We talked about how Thanksgiving is this time to be thankful, but I want to know how we can be grateful every day, not just on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, a lot of people wonder about that. How do we take that Thanksgiving feeling and make it part of our everyday life?
It's like we need to work out our gratitude muscles, like a routine to make them stronger.
That's a good way to think about it. And just like any workout, you have to be consistent and put in the effort. But it's worth it. Studies have shown that being grateful can make you feel better, less stressed, less anxious, and even healthier.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. So it's not just about feeling good right now, it can actually make you healthier and happier in the long run.
Exactly. When we're grateful, we focus on what we have instead of what we don't. It makes us feel more content and appreciate all the good stuff, and that can change how we treat people and how we deal with problems.
So how do we actually make gratitude part of our day? What are some things we can do?
One simple thing is to keep a gratitude journal. Every day, write down 3 things you're grateful for. Big stuff, like family or a good job, or small stuff, like a pretty sunset or a good cup of coffee.
I like that idea. It's like taking a picture of all the good things so we can remember them.
Right. And if you keep doing it, you'll start seeing things differently. You'll start noticing all the good things around you, even the small ones.
It's like training our brains to see everything through a grateful lens.
Exactly. Another good thing to do is tell people you appreciate them. Let them know you're thankful for them, like your family, friends, people you work with, even a stranger who does something nice for you.
It feels so good to both say those things and hear them. It makes you feel closer to people and spreads good vibes.
You got it. It doesn't have to be a big thing. Just saying thank you can mean a lot.
Okay, so we've got the gratitude journal and thanking people. What else can we do?
Try mindful appreciation. Just take a minute to really enjoy something. A tasty meal, a walk in nature, a good conversation. Use all your senses, notice every little detail, and just really be in the moment.
It's like pausing everything and soaking up all the good things around us.
Yes, it's about shifting from doing to being, from rushing through our days to just enjoying the present moment.
And I bet slowing down and appreciating those little moments can make us feel more calm and happy.
Definitely. It's a great way to deal with stress and busyness, which we all have a lot of.
So as we're wrapping up our deep dive into Thanksgiving, I want to go back to where we started. Those pests we sometimes find in our homes. We talked about how they're part of nature, but I wonder if they can teach us anything about gratitude.
That's an interesting thought. It seems strange to think about being grateful because of pests, but they are really good at surviving, adapting, and even thriving when things are tough.
Yeah, they don't give up easily. They keep finding a way. Maybe that can remind us to keep going when we have problems, to find hope and keep moving forward.
I like that. And maybe we can learn from how everything in nature is connected. Even the creatures we don't like have a job to do in the ecosystem.
It reminds us that we're all part of this big web of life, and every creature matters.
And maybe knowing that can make us grateful for how amazing and complex nature is, even the parts we don't always love.
So to wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave everyone with this. Gratitude is a gift we give to ourselves. It's a choice we make, a way we see the world. And the more we practice it, the better we get at it.
As we get closer to Thanksgiving, let's try to be more grateful, not just for the big things, but for all the everyday moments in our lives.
Let's really enjoy the good food, appreciate the people around us, and find reasons to be thankful, no matter how big or small.
And remember, gratitude isn't about reaching a goal, it's about the journey. It's something we can do every single day.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into pests and Thanksgiving. Hope you enjoyed it. And we wish you a very happy Thanksgiving full of gratitude and joy.